Have you ever wondered what it feels like to have your basic human rights curtailed? Picture yourself in Texas, where a law known as SB 8 has been enacted, a law that severely restricts a woman's right to choose. This law, devoid of any exceptions for circumstances as harrowing as rape or incest, leaves women in a state of fear and uncertainty. Now, imagine the fear and uncertainty that prevails among women in Texas. Let's embark on a journey through time, tracing the events from the passing of this controversial law. It all began with the passing of a law in Texas known as SB 8. The law bans abortions after the detection of a fetal heartbeat, which is typically around 6 weeks. There are no exceptions for rape or incest, making it one of the strictest abortion laws we've seen. The Supreme Court, however, ruled that abortion providers have the right to challenge this law in federal court. This was a glimmer of hope in an otherwise bleak landscape for women's reproductive rights. But this decision doesn't necessarily mean the end of SB 8. It could lead to a suspension of the law, but it also makes it difficult for abortion providers to prevent future civil lawsuits against them for performing abortions. The impact of this decision is far-reaching. It's not just about Texas. It's about setting a precedent that could potentially affect women's rights across the entire nation. If Roe v. Wade were to be overturned, it could lead to abortion bans in many states, affecting the distance women would have to travel to access abortion services. This law and the Supreme Court's decision have sparked a wave of protests across the country. People are voicing their anger and sadness, fighting for the rights of women to have control over their own bodies. President Biden and Vice President Harris have also expressed their concerns about the ruling and its impact on women's rights. They recognize the significant consequences this could have for abortion access in Texas and potentially other states. In the midst of all this, the Supreme Court is preparing for another controversial abortion case involving the blocking of a key medication abortion drug. This could further restrict abortion, even in states where it is currently allowed. The events are unfolding, the stakes are high, and the future of women's rights hangs in the balance. This has set a precedent that could potentially affect women's rights across the entire nation. As the dust settles, let's look at the aftermath of this landmark decision. The ruling sparked a wave of protests and demonstrations across the nation. People took to the streets in cities like New York, Denver, Phoenix, and Eugene, expressing their anger and sadness over the decision. Tear gas filled the air in Arizona, while arrests were made in Oregon and New York City. In the wake of the ruling, several states have enacted abortion bans, and clinics in Arizona and Arkansas have suspended abortion services. This has created a ripple effect, disrupting the lives of countless women. The impact, however, is not felt evenly across the board. It's the women of color who are bearing the brunt of this decision. They account for a significant percentage of abortions and face higher maternal mortality rates. Now, with this ruling, their access to safe and legal abortion services has been severely restricted, leaving them in a precarious position. The aftermath of this decision has been tumultuous and far-reaching, affecting not just the women directly involved, but also shaking the very foundation of women's rights in the country. The fight for women's rights is far from over. In the face of adversity, action is our most powerful weapon. We must not stand idle in the face of injustice, and this moment calls for just that: action. Support organizations that are at the forefront, fighting for women's rights. There are numerous resources available for those who wish to educate themselves further about this crucial issue. By lending our voices, our time, and our resources, we can turn the tide in this fight. So let's come together, let's learn, let's act. Remember, your voice matters. Stand up for women's rights and make a difference today.